9 o'clock. Are we ready? Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, November 1st, 2023. We'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. You can join today's board meeting via phone. Dial 971-254-3149. Conference ID 736-023-979. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us by going online to tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing star 6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone registered online for public comment this morning?
No, we don't.
We do not. Do we have anyone in the room who wants to make public comment this morning? We do not. Okay, so then we will start this meeting with Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Yamamoto, please.
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I'll mention to folks with us in the room electronically that Commissioner Scar is joining us remotely this morning. All right, so our first order of business, I'll just mention now that we have agenda item 12 has been postponed. And the reason for that is that we are waiting on the contract. And an unscheduled item will be taken after item 14 on the agenda. And with that, we will move right into our presentation this morning. We are fortunate to have Tillamook Working Lands and Waters Cooperative. Kristen Rasmussen, Director of Public Affairs from Hampton Lumber, is going to lead us through a presentation about Tillamook Working Lands and Waters. Good morning, Kristen. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you guys today. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
It takes just a bit sometimes.
Sometimes there's a lag in the room.
Yeah, we can see it online, so we know what's coming.
Oh,
okay. Well, I'll get started though. I'll introduce myself. Thanks, Deb. My name is Kristen Rasmussen, as you mentioned, from Hampton Lumber and Family Forests. We are a 4th generation family-owned company. We celebrated our 81st year in business this year. We have 10 sawmills in the Pacific Northwest in Canada, including 4 here in Oregon. Of course, the nearest and dearest to you all is our Tillamook sawmill, which we've owned and maintained since 1986. We also own and manage timberland in Northwest Oregon to help supply our mills. And we are a member of the Tillamook Working Lands and Waters Cooperative. And so I'm here this morning to represent this group of individuals who work in forest, farming, fishing sectors in the county. I was hoping to have a few more of our members here with me today, but between sickness and work demands, it's just going to be me today. But we are scheduled to return next week for the second half of this presentation, and you'll be able to talk with some of our other members then if you have any additional questions for other folks. So I'll just start today with giving you a very brief overview of what Tillamook Working Lands and Waters is, what we do, and what brings us together. First of all, whether you're in forest products or farming or fisheries, we're all connected by a set of shared goals, and those include clean water, a healthy, safe environment, and thriving local communities and economies. We also share similar challenges, whether it be related to weather, infrastructure, services, transportation, workforce, and regulation. And so we found that we all appreciate the importance of working together and communicating regularly, not only amongst ourselves as stewards of the land and water here in the county, but also with our neighbors and the general public. There's a lot of science, technology, training, planning, care, communication that goes into the work we do in natural resource industries, and a lot of that can take place behind the scenes and that might not be readily apparent to the general public. And so this group came together really out of a desire to shed some light on that and to create opportunities for the public to hear from the people who are actually doing the work. So for most of our members, that means taking time away from the farm, leaving the forest, the mill, the hatchery, and getting the information and ourselves out into the community. So I thought I would go over a little bit about some of the activities that we've been doing over the past 7 or so years since this group came together. I think one of the main activities that we participate in is providing tours, and these are large tours that try to incorporate all 3 sectors. So we might start in the timberland, move down to a farm visit, perhaps a dairy, and then before making it to the waterfront, we visited Trask Hatchery, we visited Whiskey Creek Shellfish Hatchery in the past, we stopped by Jacobson Sea Salt, numerous dairies. We've brought folks to the robotic dairies, kind of understand the technology behind all that goes into producing dairy products in the county. So they're pretty big productions, and Commissioner Yamamoto has been really helpful in helping us organize those tours. He's facilitated bringing in new commissioners from across the state out to kind of see what we're doing here in Tillamook County, really as a showcase piece for how well natural resources can be managed and how the industries work together here on the coast. And so I think they're really popular, and we recently started partnering with the Tillamook Estuaries Partnership. We actually had our first tour with them this last Saturday. It's called Hike the Harvest. We got some folks from the general public out to see a recent harvest area so they could go in depth about what it is that was going on there and what they can expect to see and what kind of planning and care goes into doing something like that. So we also, engage in a multitude of other ways. That includes showing up at the Tillamook County Fair. We've had a presence there for a number of years now. It's a good opportunity for our members to engage with local residents and visitors to the county. In 2020, with COVID and some of the challenges that presented from a communication standpoint, we started our Park at Cinema. The first one was held at Hampton's Log Yard, and it's since been at the Martin Dairy, where we can invite folks out to enjoy an evening together and experience some of the working lands in the county. All the proceeds from that go to benefit the future natural resource leaders and the local FFA chapters, and so those kids come out and help us with that activity. We're also at the June Dairy Parade. We have a quarterly spot on KTIL where we can talk about our industries and resources in the community, Tillamook Bay Community College, natural resource programs, and things like that. So our members regularly participate in that. When we first got together, we produced a brochure for folks who have recently moved to the area, explaining local farms and forests and the work that takes place on them and what they can expect to experience being neighbors to those types of activities. And lately, we've also brought on an intern and have supported succession planning seminars for family farmers and that kind of thing. So we do a little bit of everything. I think what's quite impressive is that this is all done by people who have jobs in farming and fishing and have a lot of other things going on. So it's a really, I think, impressive group. Really shows the dedication of people who think this is really important that we get our message out there. And lastly, I'll say the other thing that we've focused on from a communication standpoint is producing some videos. We can't be everywhere all the time, and so we produced a series of 3 videos that kind of walks the general public through who we are, what we do, and lastly, why we do it. And that's what I'd like to do today, is share 2 of those videos with you. The first one kind of focuses on who we are, and the second on what some of the activities that we engage in are, and some of the technology and science and practices that go into maintaining lands and waters here in the county. So with that, I think I'll stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Deb. She's got the videos ready to go.
Perfect.
My name is Megan Thornton, and I'm a forester with Hancock Forest Management. I've been here for about a year and a half. I'm actually originally from New Hampshire. I've always been a big outdoors person. I love hiking, biking, running, and skiing, and I also love learning about the world and how things work, so kind of forestry was sort of a natural fit for me and a career that I've learned to become passionate about. Something I think the public doesn't often realize about foresters is how oftentimes we're thinking big picture and how what we do impacts the landscape and everyone around it, and not even today, but for the next 200 years.
Well, I'm Larry's wife, and this is my wife Pam, and I bought this farm 51 years ago, and God's given the ability to be a really good chicken farmer. Well, I was a dairy farmer till 1999. I quit farming and retired for a few years, and then my granddaughter got a few chickens, and one thing led to another, and I was back in the chicken business at 66. I'm 73 now, and Lord willing, I'll be in for 3 more years, and I'll retire.
The only problem was when he started the chicken business, we didn't have any customers and we didn't have any cartons, and it's kind of difficult.
I give a lot of eggs away, and I can go out and get out of the house and do something productive. And Lord willing, I want to be productive till I die. I don't want to.
And then sit around.
I don't want to sit around and do nothing. I want to be productive till the day I die. And this makes me productive and produce food to feed people.
The beauty of Tillamook County is we are a natural resource county. We have logging, we have farming, we have fisheries. We all have to work together to make sure that this community continues to thrive on natural resources. Our cheese is bought throughout the United States and actually different parts of the world. So it brings a lot of money back into our communities that otherwise would never make it here. One of the beautiful things about the Tillamook community is our dedication to water quality, and we take great pride in the fact that it's constantly and continually getting cleaner every year.
Living here in Tillamook for all these years, it's been really kind of a neat experience for us. Just so many wonderful people, no matter what their backgrounds are, whether it be logging or dairy industry. Everyone seems to be pulling for each other. And if there's a problem here or there, we work it out, and I've never had any issues whatsoever. And that's really a comforting feeling being in a small community.
Our community here all works together to make things right for everybody else. What I mean by that is they really take care of the upper watershed that drains, that feeds the hatchery. So in a sense, anything that happens up at the timber company comes down through the hatchery. So when there's issues up there, they're Johnny on the spot. We work collaboratively to get any issues resolved in a timely fashion. And it's just been great working with the timber companies. The farms, we have farms around us as well, and everybody's working together to make sure that our resources and our water stays clean. My name is Jim Scarr. I work for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm a Fish and Wildlife Manager 1 here at the Trask River Hatchery. So I've been with the agency over 32 years, going on my 33rd. It's been the best job. It's been a job of a lifetime, really. I love to come to work. I'm going to be sad when I retire because this is what I really want to do. Our plan is to stay in the community. We've got lots of friends and family. The resources here as far as volunteer opportunities with our local fishing guides and community members that come to the hatchery and do a bunch of volunteer work to make sure this will be here another 100 years.
my grandfather used to always tell me that if it can happen, it will happen. So anything's possible any given day. My day typically starts whenever the phone rings, and that usually is around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. We typically start loading trucks around 3:30. Usually by then my phone's ringing, and so the day officially starts. A lot of our funding for our schools, our roads, is based off off the timber revenue with state timber sales that the mills actively purchase. They're taking that money and goes into a general fund and goes to a lot of different things. So the natural resource sector is a huge thing for not only our community but for the state. When you can log a marked out unit and come back in 10 to 20 years and see it all come back and look like it was when you started. You know, we have logged, my brothers and I have logged units that my grandfather and great-grandfather logged the last go around, and it's come full circle and done it again. So, you know, very much renewable resource, and is done in a very professional manner.
Tillamook County is a natural resource dependent county from north to south and east to west. And those three primary natural resources are agriculture, fisheries, and forestry. And so as you can see, we know each other well, and there are a lot of businesses within our county that are codependent on the needs of all three industries.
Obviously the ground's steep here, but is it rocky? Can it support a tree? What kinds of trees to support? So I'm making all these observations and coming up with a plan. And then based off of that plan, we move forward. And so part of that plan, as you see behind us, is doing a site prep. So all this vegetation that's come up, we're just going to knock it back and give our little trees a chance. They pretty much need about 2 years really to get above it. And once they're going, then they're kind of off on their own. Every hour we have to monitor the weather, and that's required by the law. The logging administrator has already created a map. It has all the streams mapped out on it. He's documented in the harvest folder, you know, what streams are where, you know, if they're classified as a fish stream, not a fish stream. So I kind of know all the resources that are out there, and then I'll send that on a shapefile to the pilot. And so right now in his helicopter, he's got a computer screen with that shapefile. So he's got a georeference boundary, so he knows where he's at, he knows where the unit's at, he knows those stream buffers have been cut out. And so he uses that. So not only is he looking for those resources, but he's also got it on the map right there in front of him. And so every time he pulls the trigger to spray, it paints a line on that map, so he knows where he's covered already. And also that helps him when there's a sensitive resource such as water, he'll fly parallel to that and he'll paint a line adjacent to it, and then so now he knows he's got his boundary where he's safe. So that first one, he's being really careful judging. So say for a fish stream or a domestic stream, we have to be 60 feet away. And so he'll be sure he gets 60 feet away on that computer screen, looking out the window. Yeah, looks right. He'll paint that line, and so now he knows he's good, and then he can start really moving. So everyone talks about drift. So that's the thing that most people are worried about. The biggest number one variable is droplet size. So if you've got a big, heavy droplet, it's going to fall. And the second variable is wind. So if you've got good wind, and we know we're controlling our droplet size because he's got certain nozzles to make a coarse droplet, we can be very certain that what we're applying is going where we want it, and it's staying there.
we try to do is shellfish farmers, we just try to stay ahead of our orders. So we're constantly, ramping up for the weekends. We have a truck that comes down here once a week that picks up our product and we ship out. It goes down to Newport and it gets distributed up and down the coast here. So aquaculture in Tillamook County, we have 2 bays. We have Tillamook Bay, we have Netarts Bay. Water quality is very important to us as shellfish farmers, but it's important to everybody in this county. If the water quality actually degrades or gets worse, then we can't ship products. So we're very, very concerned about keeping our water quality in good shape. The state works with us very well. They do a lot of bacteria checking and whatnot, make sure that when we do ship our product, it's safe to eat. And so the unique thing about here in Netarts Bay is it's one of the main estuaries on the coast of Oregon that is safe year-round. We're very blessed to have that to farm in.
Advancements in the last 5 to 6 years have been robotic technology, and like this farm, the Oldingham Dairy, they have adapted several new options. One is the vector feeding system. Another one is the robotic milking. So one of my favorite technologies that we use on our farm, and this is great because I'm not on the farm all the time, it's an app on the phone, and all of our cows have collars like these cows do. And so the collars will share information on their rumination, so if the cows are eating, if their stomachs are working like they're supposed to. So if the nutrition levels are off, then we can check a cow before she actually gets sick. And if cows are in heat, so when they're coming into heat and they need to be bred, they move around a lot more, and so we can check to see a little bit more information on these cows. It'll show how many days in milk, and then the breeding window and other information. So it's a really good tool that makes us more efficient, and we can take better care of our cows, and they in turn then take care of us.
Thank you for playing those. I'm glad they came through okay for everybody. But I wanted to show you those as an example of the kinds of topics that we like to cover with folks when we do tours. That's really our preference, to be able to bring people out, let them see firsthand what we're doing, the technologies, the techniques, and things like that, what we're doing, and more particularly why we do it that way. So I'll close. I think I might have gone over a little bit of time, but if anyone has any questions, I'll mention again that we'll be back next week, and we will have more time for more of a discussion then. We only have one video to show, but I guess I'll turn it back over and see if anyone has any questions for me.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks for being here, and thanks for those excellent videos. They were just delightful to watch. I really appreciate them, and I'm grateful to be able to share them with the community via TCTV Online, because this is being live streamed and also video recorded, and it'll play on local cable access. So a lot of people in the community will be able to see those videos because you shared them with us here today. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn to Commissioner Yamamoto, who's the longtime liaison to Tillamook Working Lands and Waters, and give him a chance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Kirsten, thank you so much for being here. And, I was at the original meeting, gosh, probably 8 years ago, and we sat around the table with Oregonians for Food and Shelter, and just brainstormed what's most important to us in Tillamook County as far as a natural resource-based economy goes. And we determined that it was education. We have people moving here to retire from all across the nation, around the world. We found that people, when they move here, don't understand modern forestry or modern dairy or modern fisheries practices. So we decided education was really what we wanted to do. Oregonians for Food and Shelter was a terrific organization to come in just to help us figure out what we wanted to do. They didn't lay out any groundwork for us. We are still just a grassroots organization, and we're comprised of people from the timber industry and dairy, fisheries, government, things of that nature, education. And I need to tell this story, and I hope you don't mind, but when I became a commissioner, I went to AOC, the Association of Oregon Counties. One of the very first meetings during county college, I just made the statement that when it comes to clean water, habitat restoration, and fish recovery, no Oregon county does this better than Tillamook County. And of course, all the eyes in the room just kind of rolled all at once. That's when I decided that, we need to bring commissioners from across the state to Tillamook County on tour and show them how we do things. After that first tour, we had believers. This is still, when you look at AOC, this is still one of the most coveted tours that commissioners want to come on. It's absolutely amazing. So we do things right, we do, and there's such a lot to do here. Our most recent tours have been called "It's About the Water," and I think you heard it in the videos. Yes, there's one industry cannot do anything and not affect the other two because we're all connected by water. And water quality is absolutely the most important thing for Tillamook County because we have so much of it, especially during the winter months. So it's important, it's all science-based, and that's what we're trying to get across to people is that we do handle our environment very well. And yet we produce some terrific products, which are used worldwide. It is absolutely amazing. Our products are worldwide. So again, Kristen, thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to the third video. Maybe we can get some more people from Tillamook Working Lands and Waters here to have a discussion. But Kristen, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, Kristen, I'd like to invite Commissioner Scar to give some comments. Her husband Jim was featured in one of those videos. It was terrific. He did a great job.
And he's since moved on to a different type of fishing or work with salmon.
Yes, thank you for that, Chair Bell. I appreciate it. And I'll keep my comments short. I know we're going to have a full conversation next week related to this, but just to share that Tillamook Working Lands and Waters is an amazing organization, and yes, I might have a little bias since my husband Jim has been involved since pretty much, I think, in the beginning as a hatchery manager and just someone who really values our salmon runs and the clean water that's required to make that happen. So I've been on 2 of the tours myself, and every time I go on a tour, I learn something new. So this really is an exceptionally valuable organization doing really good work. So I look forward to a full discussion next week, but thank you for being here.
All right. Thanks again, Kristen.
Thank you,
really
Kristen.
appreciate it.
Yeah, bye.
All right, that was terrific. For folks who are watching, we are really grateful when organizations make presentations because not only is it terrific for us, but also for the community to learn about the wonderful things that are going on in our community. So for those of you who represent or work in organizations who might be interested in making a presentation to the commissioners, please reach out to our office and let us know, and we'll get you on the schedule. All right, well, we will move on to our legislative administrative agenda and start with item 6, which is discussion and consideration of the board's approval to authorize a community service program agreement template and authorizing Lieutenant Ani Seaholm to sign future agreements. Lieutenant Seaholm, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Ani.
So this is an agreement, as you just said, for community service work for justice-involved individuals that we supervise that have either been ordered by the court as part of their sentence to do community service work or an alternative sanction that would be given by one of the supervising officers due to compliance issues. We've always had community service work as a program or an alternative sanction to offer to justice-involved individuals. During COVID, we lost a lot of our placement agencies, and so we've been trying to rebuild that. Give credit to Deputy Tim Weber and our PO Tech Aubrey Capps who've been working on getting placement agencies so that way we have places to refer the individuals that need to do community service work. So in part of that, we were trying to make sure there's an understanding between what we'll do on our end and the placement the placement agency. And so got this agreement together. I've talked to Rachel and Mr. Sargent about how we can do this. And that's why I wanted to bring it up for discussion as far as if I could have the ability to sign these and then provide them to the board for keeping of them. That way we weren't having to take up agenda time every time we get a new placement agency and bring this forward. So that's basically what I have today, and I can try to answer any questions, or possibly if Mr. Sargent or Rachel are available, they can give some input on that too.
Would either of you like to give input on that?
When I first approached me and gave me that contract that we worked on to get together, she asked, does the board need to sign it? And I said, yeah, I think they do. And that's mostly, the board should sign contracts. And Rachel and Isabel and her team, I know, are working on trying to get a handle on all of the contracts so that they can, make sure they know what's going on in all the various departments. But it seemed like a good compromise in this situation, other than have Ani come every time she's got somebody who's doing community service, to come in and ask you to sign the agreement with the placement agency. That seemed like something that, as a department head, she should be able to do, and that's sort of the compromise that we came to when that's how this came forward today.
Terrific. Rachel, anything to add?
I tend to favor the board signing this agreement. I didn't get into a big discussion of it with Bill, but I think it depends on the volume. If we're talking about a few, I think this type of thing happens with all the other departments where there's some level of duplication in the type of agreements that are coming before you, but at the end of the day, you have elected to approve those. So I think for me, I support whatever anybody else, what the rest of the group would prefer the board to do. But I think if it's just a couple, I would lean more towards the board signing them, but I don't really have a good handle on how many there are. If it's dozens, I think then the approach set before you today makes sense.
Ani, can you provide us with any information about how many agreements we're talking about?
So at this time, and I should have asked to see where we're at right now with how many placement agencies, I would say we probably have maybe 6, but we're trying to build that. So we can certainly bring them before the board and see how that goes. We didn't ever used to have anything like this back, at least when I had first started with this division. And then in rebuilding the program, that's where we started trying to work on these. And so we have some out there with a misunderstanding of me before when we did this. And we're just trying to get them updated, and that's why also trying to get them before the board, or, oh, I'm sorry, my camera keeps shutting off. Before the board, maybe in there, or at least sent over to you guys to have them. So however you guys prefer, we want to bring them before you guys at this point, and if it gets to be to a number where it just seems like we're, bringing them before you every week, then we can change that. So I'll defer to you guys.
Thank you. Well, as the liaison to the sheriff's office, I'll just jump in and say that I appreciate everybody's thoughtful approach to this, and I'm leaning toward the compromise solution that I think indeed the board should sign contracts for sure, and if it seems appropriate to me to trust Ani to generate agreements with what are we calling them, community partners who are working with us for community service opportunities. It seems reasonable for you to create those agreements. So I'll turn to my fellow commissioners. What are your thoughts?
Well, when I first saw this, I was concerned. It's my understanding now that, Ani, this is a template for all the various placement agencies that you're going to sign contracts with. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it would be the agreement. So basically, there's no financial monetary exchange, anything like that. It would just be for supervised individuals that need a placement agency to do community service work. And most of the time that's at a nonprofit. But that way it can help us generate folders or compile a list of placement agencies, what types of crimes they'll take or not take, so we can ensure that we're making an appropriate placement for the justice involved individual, and then for them to know that we need them to report on hours and things of that nature.
Thank you, Ani. So, to Rachel and Bill, is this something, are we trying to get away from having the board sign all of these contracts? And if it is, I'm just wondering, after they're signed, we would still have the authority to go back and look at them and change them if necessary. I don't know. I can go either way here.
I think it's just exactly the opposite, Commissioner Yamamoto. I think, not necessarily me, but back in my earlier tenure, department heads tended to sign a lot of agreements that I would approve of before.
Okay.
And they kind of, existed out there, I think. And now there's justifiably, I think, a movement to bring more of these types of agreements to the board and make sure that they go through the board process. So on this one, that's why I said to begin with, I thought that they need to bring it before the board. And then I thought about it again when I looked at it and I say, like Rachel mentioned, if there's going to be one of these every other week, it just seemed like form over substance to me that Ani could sign. That's why it became this agenda item to have you consider giving Ani the authority, provided you think the contract's in a good format to sign.
So I think I could agree with that, as long as after these contracts are signed by Ani or other departments, whoever it might be, those contracts would still come to this office, and so that we would have an opportunity just to look at them to make sure we didn't have any problems. In that instance, Bill, where, let's just look at this one since we're looking at this one. So if Ani were to find a placement agency and sign this agreement, the finished contract could come back to the Board of Commissioners office where we could review it. At that point, if we were uncomfortable with it, could we change it or deny it?
Of course. But I think that was the idea.
Okay. So I think I could go either way here, really.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk to Rachel. I know Rachel is really trying hard to make sure she keeps a handle. Your office keeps a handle on all the contracts that are out there. And it was my understanding that if you gave Ani this ability, that she would, whenever a contract was signed, she would forward it to the board, and so that at least there'd be, it would be documented that agreement has been signed, and your office would be aware that it was out there.
And they're all reviewed by legal counsel.
Yeah, they would be.
So again, all of a sudden while we're talking about this, things are going through my head, and there are oftentimes contracts where you've already reviewed them and passed them on, saying that they meet form, but then commissioners do have questions. We're able to ask that person that's bringing the contract to us questions that we have. So I'm wondering if after we sign it and look at it, we would have to bring them back anyway. So again, I don't know. I'm thinking this through in my own mind, and I'm not sure exactly which is going to be best for them.
Yeah, I'm sorry to complicate it.
It's okay.
That was just how it worked out. I just thought, it would be better to just give Ani the authority to do it, or at least least an idea to get on the authority to do it, since she's working with the fair or whoever she's working with, not-for-profit organizations that she sends these folks to. So, it's not that big of a deal one way or another. I just kind of I flip-flopped on it.
It's okay, thank you. Commissioner Scar?
And I'm more than
That's okay.
I'm more than happy to bring them before the board if that's what you guys would prefer.
Thank you. I've looked through it and I was just looking at it from a perspective of risk, because it seems like that's where we would want to have these come in front of the board. I think that's why, in part, we have a signing limit. Obviously, there are no dollars changing hands, so this is under most department heads' signing limits. So I assume that Ani has a signing limit as well. I think it's $25,000. Obviously, this doesn't trigger that. I think when we think about risk, it's kind of a different risk than other contracts where money's changing hands and where we're paying to have work done, et cetera. I think the two pieces that caught my attention that Ani would just have to make sure she's diligent on is that the person signing the contract for the placement agency actually has the authority to sign for them. And then there is the agency shall retain a general liability insurance with a combined single limit equivalent of not less than $1 million. And so I think Ani needs to make sure that happens. I would be very comfortable with Ani signing these. I think having a copy come to our office, and I would love to just have them include that insurance certificate when that happens, so that we have two steps that way, that we're making sure that they are the right person and the insurance is there. But I don't think as a commissioner, I need to sign each of these community service agreements. I don't think that the risk to the county is at such a level that each of these needs to be in front of the commissioners. I think it's just, we need to make sure we get that insurance proof, and that we're sure that we're dealing with the director or whoever is, the appropriate signer in agency, and not just some program manager who doesn't really have signing authority for them, because that puts us in that risk place. But I don't think I, as a commissioner, have to determine that. I trust Ani to do that. And it's just nice to make sure those copies land in our office so Rachel knows where agreements are currently. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. I concur. I trust Ani to do this, and it feels like, it really isn't. It isn't in the commissioner's purview to generate placement agreements with people who are going to work with justice-involved individuals. I mean, it's squarely on your desk and not ours, so I don't want to create extra work for you. And I can agree to Commissioner Scar's provisions that when you have executed agreements, if you forward them to us with an insurance certificate, I think that would be great.
I can agree with that also. I just need to mention that we're placing another duty on Rachel. I'm not sure. There's a limit to what Rachel can do. Eventually, she has to reach that limit sometime. But maybe on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, something like that, we just get a folder to the commissioners so that we can just go through any contracts that have been signed, not brought before the commissioners after Rachel gives her approval.
So I guess I would ask Rachel, there are other contracts, as we've referenced, that are signed by department heads that are under the signing limit or within their signing limits that the Board of Commissioners do not see. I assume that you still get a copy of those signed contracts, or am I wrong?
So we're talking about two different things. The contracts that per the contract policy, the contracts that the department heads have authority to sign are more of our standard fair contracts where we go out and we seek bids and we procure services. That spending limit is $25,000. You do not see those. Sometimes you might if it's kind of a special case, but typically you don't see those. I should be seeing and approving all of those before they go out for signature. Sometimes council sees those. I do not always get those back. We find contracts all the time where department heads have just signed them or they're coming before the board and they're not approved by council or myself. Then there are other agreements, which I would put this one in the case of where we're talking about intergovernmental agency, intergovernmental agreements, intergovernmental agency agreements, memorandums of understandings, grant agreements, some of which have financial considerations, some of which do not. All of those come before the board. So this would, again, in my opinion, be one of those agreements. While there's no financial consideration, it's a special type of agreement that would typically come before the board. Again, those often happen with department heads acquiring signatures and implementing those projects that I counsel or the board may not see. That's been the practice to date. So just by way of background information.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I would love for us to visit this practice and to determine what really needs to come in front of the board from a perspective of our managing risk and what part of this really doesn't need to in terms of agreements such as these. I see this as a low risk agreement. I don't see it as necessarily a need for us to see them. So I think I think Rachel, you've laid out a great piece of what we have overall. We're dealing with common practice, and we need a policy, and we need to, I think, dig into and identify what the commissioners really need to see. From my perspective, an agreement like this one, which just says, and I've worked with corrections before with these, having people volunteer in organizations I was part of. I just don't see that this rises to the level of the board needing to see each and every one of these. I'm comfortable approving it as to form, and then Rachel, I think it's a determination from risk and your perspective and county council's perspective, whether these need to be on file with the county commissioners in case something should go wrong, or if we can have them on file with the sheriff's department and call for them if an issue arises.
I can concur with that. I think it's time for a policy. We develop a policy here on which ones we need to see, which ones we don't. But I think all of them have to come after they're signed. I think all of them should come through our office anyway, if that makes sense. So.
It does, and I think that was the intent of the policy as I described, that it doesn't, even if it's required by the board.
Okay. So again, I think we need to develop a policy here, and I think that would be the way to go. At this point, I think I could consider approval here of this agreement until we get that policy in place.
In that case, I think we're ready for a motion.
Bill, you comfortable with that?
Oh, absolutely. It was kind of, I didn't mean to make it such a discussion item, but
okay.
But yeah, I thought you could give Ani, approve it as the form and give Ani the authority to sign it, to sign future agreements using that template.
Subject to policy change.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of the board's approval to authorize a community service program agreement template and authorizing Lieutenant Ani Seaholm to sign future agreements, I would move approval.
I think I saw you second, but you're muted. Oh, we lost your audio.
I can hear you, Commissioner Scar, on
That's interesting.
the computer.
So can you guys?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, now you're back.
Are we back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, well, Ani and I could hear each other. So
Okay.
I would second, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you for the discussion.
Thanks, Commissioners.
Thank you, Ani.
All right, item 7 is discussion and consideration of personal services agreement 23/24-011 with Center for Health and Wellbeing, LLC, for full spectrum stepped care integrated behavioral health development services. Commissioner Scar, are you carrying this one?
I am. Marlene is unable to join us today, so I'm going to carry both of her items, which means if you have very detailed questions, I probably don't have the answer to those, but I'll do my best. So this is a contract that we have had for the past year, working with our behavioral health department as they organize and create the structure of behavioral health for our clinics. And they work with us 16 hours a month or 4 hours a week to help coordinate our meetings, facilitate our meetings, helping work on planning documents, those types of things. Just really helping us get this department up, running, being as efficient and effective as it can be, because of course behavioral health is still a relatively new service within our clinics. So what they're looking to do is renew the contract with this organization to continue to support that work.
Thank you.
So if Marlene were here, I'd say, good work, Marlene. You need to continue on. The public health services, mental health services in particular, kind of a new item for our health department, but something that is absolutely essential. So I would be in full support here.
As am I.
Looking for a motion.
I think we are.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a personal services agreement 23/24-011 with the Center for Health and Wellbeing LLC for full spectrum stepped care integrated behavioral health development services, I would move approval.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner. Item 8 is discussion and consideration of the third amendment to 2023 to 2025 intergovernmental agreement number 180028 with Oregon Health Authority for the financing of public health services. Commissioner Scarp.
Again, wearing Marlene's hat today. As we know, we get multiple agreements every year with the Oregon Health Authority. This is amendment number 3. This amendment is an additional cleanup. There are some carryover funds and unallocated funds that are being moved from the prior year to this year as OHA continues to catch up. There are 2 categories with funds being moved. There are I'm not going to read all the numbers, but public health emergency response, there is an amount carried over from the previous year of $12,044. Under preventative health and health services, there's an amount of $1,599.18 that is being moved into this contract year. It's actually already been spent, but they didn't pay us, so they've got to move it forward so they can write us the check. So those 2 are the amendments that are being made by Oregon Health Authority in this agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any
Perfect.
questions?
No, makes perfect sense to me.
Ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, in consideration of the third amendment to the 2023-2025 intergovernmental agreement number 180028 with Oregon Health Authority for the financing of public health services, I would move approval.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
Perfect.
Thank you, Commissioner. You have the next item, also 9, discussion and consideration of a commercial lease with Tracy S. Riggert and Todd R. Riggert for property located at 801 Ivy Avenue, Suite B in Tillamook County.
Perfect. So the dental division of the health department occupies the space at 801 Ivy Avenue, and they are looking to renew a 10-year lease. So that lease is ending, well, it ended yesterday on 10/31/23. This would renew it for another 10 years, and the monthly rent amount starts at $1,362.26. It'll increase 5% per year over the next 10 years, and the space will continue to be used by the dental administration team.
Thank you.
Okay. 5% compounded. So that's fine. I'm in agreement.
All right. Well, I'm grateful that our dental clinic will have that stability, the stability of knowing we have a safe place to operate for 10 years. So that's great.
Waiting for a motion. Madam Chair, in consideration of a commercial lease with Tracy S. Riggert and Todd R. Riggert for property located at 801 Ivy Avenue, Suite B, Tillamook County, Oregon, I would move approval.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner. Item 10 is discussion and consideration of an order in the matter of appointing members to the Tillamook County Housing Commission. With us, we have Sarah Absher, Director of Community Development.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning. Before you is an order that reflects the interview process led by Commissioner Scar recently to fill some of the vacancies on the Tillamook County Housing Commission. As you can see from the order, we've had a couple of resignations following the interview process. The request before you is to appoint Mark Kusner, Sarah Dental, Briar Smith, and David Madison to the Tillamook County Housing Commission.
Commissioners, Commissioner Scar, would you like to lead us off? Comments, questions?
Sure, absolutely. So this was, you know, as we always say, we can't do what we do without our volunteers, and the Housing Commission is one of those amazing groups of volunteers. I would like to thank those who are leaving for their service. Val Schumann was one of our original founding members, I believe, at the Housing Commission as a realtor. She just was an amazing asset to us. Tom Jarrett was with us for many years with a background in commercial building, and John Main was with us, I think, for a couple of years as well with a background in development. So they served well, and we appreciate very much all of the time that they gave to this. Peter Starkey was with us briefly as the nonprofit representative, and we're really looking forward to the new folks who are coming on with Mark Kusner, Sarah Dental, Briar Smith, and David Madison. We get a variety of skills, everything from the Habitat perspective, which is looking at affordable housing as an individual homeownership opportunity, which is something the Housing Commission has highlighted as something they want to look forward to in our future, which is great. David Madison, as a planner, has worked, I think, for nearly every city in our county, which really brings with him it's an amazing resource to us as we are looking at housing development. Sarah knows much of that as well for every city, but David's actually been the planner in many of them. So just really great experience, and Sarah Dental coming on as a realtor to help fill that space. And I believe Mark Kusner is our North County representative. So Mark has an amazing curiosity for the work that we're doing and has done a lot of research on his own just to be ready for this. So I am super excited. I'm thankful for those who have served and super excited about who's coming on board.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Scar, you stole my thunder about the volunteers in Tillamook County. We cannot do without our volunteers. We appreciate very much all the hours that are put in by volunteers throughout the county. We couldn't operate the county without volunteers, so I am in full support.
Thank you. I too am very grateful to the people who served on the Housing Commission, Val, Tom, and John, and especially those folks who have been on it since the beginning, since the inception of the Housing Commission. It's it's a big lift in the beginning, and it's something that's working really well, and it's a fabulous way to be of service in our community. And so I'm grateful to those who are moving off the board, and grateful also to those who are stepping up and willing to be of service in the future. So thank you, and thanks to Sarah for leading the Housing Commission. And I think we're ready for the motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of an order in the matter of appointing members to the Tillamook County Housing Commission, this being Board of Commissioners Order number 23-072, I would move to.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right, item 11, discussion and consideration of a professional services agreement with NASA Norman Design Studio for the Pacific City Doryman's Heritage Museum Conceptual Design Project. Rachel Hafferty, Chief of Staff.
In 2020, the Board of Commissioners awarded a transient lodging tax agreement to the Doryman's Association through their Heritage Committee to explore the design and site planning to construct the Doryman's Heritage Museum, which has been a vision of theirs for a long time, on a property that they've received by donation adjacent to the Tillamook County Library branch in Pacific City. They have done a lot of work exploring the feasibility of constructing the museum at that site. There have been some potential barriers before them in that being the best site for the museum. Concurrently, over the last couple of years, as the county has worked with the community and partners, including the Doryman's Association, on the Kiwanda Corridor project, which, as you know, includes many elements along Cape Kiwanda Drive in Pacific City, and resulted in the acquisition of the Jensen property. As we were exploring concepts for how we were going to develop the Jensen property, the concept of constructing the Doryman's Heritage Museum on the Jensen property became a pretty popular concept. And so in the Kiwanda Corridor project concept plan, it includes the construction of the Doryman's Association, the Heritage Museum on the Jensen property. It was unanimously supported by the Doryman's Association to explore that. No final decisions have been made. There's still they still have the property by the library, but they are supportive of exploring construction of the museum on the Jensen property. So we're moving ahead and implementing the Kiwanda Corridor project. As you know, we're right in the middle of construction with the parking lot. We're exploring construction of the realignment of the intersection at Sunset Avenue, Cape Kiwanda Drive, and Pacific Avenue as part of the Jensen property alternative embedded in the Kiwanda Corridor project. Also, we have an opportunity to use the outstanding TLT grant funds awarded to the Doryman's Association to further the design concept of the museum. So before you today is consideration of a contract in the amount of almost $54,000 that would use the balance of those funds. I am facilitating this, but it is really their project. The contractor, Nosa Norman, is one of the sub-consultants with Consort who is leading the Cape Kiwanda work. They are involved in all of the design aspects. They have designed the restroom, they're in our reconstruction meetings, so they're very, very well versed in the project as a whole and would be a great fit to move forward the concept work of can the Doryman's Museum fit and be functional with on the Jensen property. So the scope of work for this contract includes inspiration and visioning, which they have done a lot of on the other site, but it's placing it here. So we're not going to be starting from scratch. Site planning, test fit plans, and generating some schematics and 3D renderings for the Heritage Committee to review. There's also five meetings that include county, the Kiwanda Center, because this is adjacent to the Kiwanda Center. There'll be a shared parking lot that's on the table. So how does that functionally work together? Lots of questions to sort through there, as well as inclusion with the Heritage Committee and the full Doryman's Association at the appropriate time later in the process. So this is an exciting next step that the county is on the sidelines more of, and Nosa Norman and the Heritage Committee are really, really leading it. But we're taking this opportunity to do a direct appoint contract with this contractor because it, for this step, is within the threshold that we can do that, so there's some efficiencies to being there, and they already know the project. If this is deemed to be a suitable location and everyone is supportive of proceeding, then the next step would probably be to contract with, to do an amendment to Consor, the prime contractor, to proceed with engineering, design, and construction documents, provided that funding is secured from yet to be determined. But it would then come back into the larger Kiwanda Corridor project contract, if that makes sense. Because we procured that through a competitive process. So any work that the county does, we can keep doing amendments to Consor's contract. We're saving some money here to do a direct appointment with their subcontractor because it's within the threshold, but if we're going to proceed, we're quickly going to exceed that threshold to keep doing direct appointment with them. So we can come back here and we're saving a little money by doing a direct appointment with them, if that makes sense. So that was a mouthful, but this is ready for consideration.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar, would you like to jump in?
Sure. No, I think this sounds like a great plan. I think that adding the opportunity for the Doryman's Association to consider placing their desired museum at the Jensen property seems to me like it would make a whole lot of sense, and ultimately, of course, it will be their decision, and in order to do that, this work needs to be done to make the determination. And we do need to get that piece of it done sooner rather than later, so that as we move forward with our plans for the Jensen, we know if that partnership with the Doryman is going to be a piece of what we do in design. So I think that makes a lot of sense, and obviously, as you've described it, Rachel, the ability to do a direct appoint just saves everybody time and money because we don't have to administer a larger process. So a very well qualified consultant is already in place, and being able to utilize them further just makes sense. So I'm in support.
Thank you.
As am I. I mean, this Doryman's Heritage Museum is quite a visionary piece coming out of the Doryman's Association of the City. This has been a long time project of the Doryman's Association. They donated a piece of land. It is unfortunate that that piece of land is in a floodplain. It would be much more difficult to design and build within that floodplain. It would take their building costs up quite a bit. And with the no officially FEMA buyout on the horizon, it may not even be possible. That is one possibility. So I appreciate Rachel very much in moving forward with our acquisition of the Jensen property. That opened up a brand new window for the Doryman's Museum. And I think they see the possibilities, especially being adjacent to the Kaiwana Community Center there. So I think this is terrific. Again, it's not a done deal. Rachel is not in charge of this project. This is the Doryman's Association project. But in order for the Doryman to be comfortable, they have to have a lot of faith in whoever's driving this from the county side. That is Rachel. We've had several meetings with the Doryman's Heritage Committee, Museum Committee, and they are pleased as punch to have Rachel working with them on this project. So I am in full support here. I think the possibilities are terrific. I really do. And again, Rachel, thank you so much for all of the work you've done for us.
Thank you. I also think it's a great idea. I love the idea of the Doryman's Museum on the Jensen property also, and adjacent to the Kaiwana Community Center. I think it would be a great placement for it. And I'm excited that it's moving forward. We've been talking and hearing about a Doryman's Heritage Museum for a long time. And so I'm excited to go to the museum. You know, there's really, I know a little bit about the history of Doryman and Tillamook County, and it's a fascinating story. So I just think it'll be a wonderful story to tell in the museum, and I think it's going to be a great resource for Pacific City and for people who visit the museum. So I think this is terrific, and I think it's a wonderful creative use of the funds that are available to us and the contractors we are already working with. So thank you very much for your work on this, Rachel. I think it's great.
Ready for a motion. Madam Chair, in consideration of an order in the matter of, wrong one. Madam Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with NOSA Norman Design Studio for the Pacific City Doryman's Heritage Museum Conceptual Design Project, I would move approval.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, as I said earlier, item 12 is postponed as we are awaiting a contract, so I anticipate we'll see that again soon. Item 13 is discussion and consideration of a lease agreement with Community Action Resource Enterprises, Inc. for the lease of real property located in the southwest quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 30, Township 1 South, Range 9 West of the Willamette Meridian, Tillamook County, Oregon, for a sheltering program. Again, Rachel Haggerty, Chief of Staff.
This agenda item is a correction to the lease agreement that the board approved on May 31st, 2023. There was an error in the legal description based on discussions around what was desired and what was available the lease. So there was a lease executed on May 31st. Since the surveyor has gone out, created a new legal description that offsets where the sheds are. It's about 23 feet from the pavement, so we do not have to relocate the sheds. And then along the rest of the southern boundary, there's about a 6-foot offset from the pavement. It's not a clear 6 foot because it kind of shifts there. But there is an offset, so we've resolved that. We have a new legal description that is incorporated in this lease. So the lease is, the only changes to the lease is the updated exhibit with the lease description and map. And section 8.17 says the lease agreement executed on May 31st, 2023. And then I cite the instrument number in the deed record is hereby terminated.
Thank you. And this enables them to keep all of their, when we talked about this change before, they were concerned about keeping all of their projects out of the flood zone. Is everything out of the flood zone with this?
I don't know the full extent of all the changes that they've made to the project. My recollection of the original design, there were 3 pods, I guess, for lack of better word, up on kind of on the that would be on the other side of the fence. And it looks like there's 2 now. So they've been able to still utilize that upper portion. I think more to the extent than they were able to before. But maybe Aaron has some information on that. But I think the short answer is
no, I think Rachel. Yeah, Rachel, I think you got it. It's just that what this required was just a little jog in the line, in the property line on the lease. That originally the entire southern border was set back 23 feet, and in doing that hampered CARE's ability to put those pods at the top of the piece of property. And so by carving out the sheds so they're unmoved, but then moving the rest of that line just a little bit further south, it allows the pods to be set in that place and keep closer to the original number they had targeted. So
good, great, thank you.
Oh, I'm in full agreement here. We approved this once, and we've discussed the minor changes that need to be done. So it's coming back to us with those minor changes as part of this new contract, and I am in full support.
Terrific. Commissioner Scar, anything else on this? Okay, well, we are looking, I, speaking for myself, I'm looking forward to seeing this project proceed. So, and hopefully, maybe before the dead of winter. Maybe. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I think we're ready for that.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a lease agreement with Community Action Resource Enterprises, Inc. for the lease of real property located at southwest 1/4 of the northwest 1/4 of Section 30, Township 1 South, Range 9 West of the Willamette Meridian, Tillamook County, Oregon, for a shelter program. I would move approval.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, item 14, discussion and consideration of a Cycle Oregon grant application for 10 electric bike charging stations at the parking lot located at 33100 Cape Coronado Drive, Pacific City, Oregon. Rachel Hector.
So this is a grant application that I already submitted, but I'm coming to you for approval because the deadline was last Friday. The deadline was last Friday. This opportunity came up very late after the board meeting, so we took the opportunity and we're here to ask for forgiveness. So as you know, the bids for the Kiwanis Corridor project came in very high, and we have identified several items that we are pulling out of the contract, and we're also negotiating with the contractor items where we can have some cost savings. That's an ongoing conversation as we go through the project, and it'll be resolved as we near the end. One of the items that is 100% out of the contract at this point, we'll clean up in the paperwork later, is the installation of the electric bike charging stations. That comes to around $45,000 with everything that encompasses making that happen. So right now we're slated to not install those. This is an opportunity that would allow us to install that. So this is a grant application in the amount of $45,000 going to the Oregon Community Foundation through the Cycle Oregon Fund. It would install 10 EV bike charging stations throughout the Cape Coronado parking lot, and if it's awarded, we will proceed with rolling those out. If we don't, nothing changes. So it is ready for consideration for what I would sign and I hope you approve.
Well, thank you. I certainly approve, and I'm glad, it's frustrating when we get grant opportunities that are like due tomorrow, and I'm glad you jumped on it. This sounds like a great opportunity, and I hope we can do it, and I understand why we took it out of the contract, and so I hope we can get a grant to cover it. I think it would be terrific. Commissioners? Commissioner Scar?
I completely agree. I think, having the bike charging stations is definitely value add. And if we can get a grant to pay for those, I'm all in support. And we did have Cycle Oregon in South Tillamook County this year. They did their event down there. I had the opportunity to go down and speak at that event, meet a few people, and it's quite an event. So hopefully the connection that Cycle Oregon has made to South Tillamook County will come through in this grant for us. So I think it's a great opportunity.
It's e-bikes that are the next big thing. They're coming on very rapidly. Being a short timer, I have my eye on an e-bike. So, that's something that everyone should consider. I'm not sure that anyone at Cycle Oregon in South Tillamook County earlier this summer had an e-bike. I think they were all actually pedal-powered bikes. But for us old-timers, the e-bikes are a great way to get around. It helps us going up hills and things of that nature. So this is terrific. And Rachel, you are forgiven. I do hope we get the grant. That would be terrific, because I think that would be an important part of the Cage Corner project. I really do. I'm in full support.
Terrific. This discussion makes me realize that I don't know what the range of e-bikes is. I don't know if people are going to be riding e-bikes to the coast from the valley. Does anybody know?
They can. Some of these more efficient e-bikes can go 80 miles or so. And so, yeah, absolutely. People could be coming here from the valley on their e-bikes.
And need to charge up in order to get home.
That's right. That's right.
Right, and I know a few people in Tillamook County that have e-bikes and ride them all around. I believe there's even an e-bike seller in Tillamook County. So it is definitely a growing industry.
That is interesting. Okay, well, I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a Cycle Oregon grant application for 10 electric bike charging stations at the parking lot located at 33100 Cape Kiwanis Drive, Pacific City, Oregon, I would move approval.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, now we're going to move into our unscheduled item, which is a public hearing concerning dissolving the Beaver Water District in Tillamook County. Rachel Henry.
Thank you. So I'll start off by saying what I said at the last meeting when we first discussed this, when you considered the order in the matter of dissolving the water district, that it is not the intent in any way for the Board of Commissioners or staff to pursue dissolution of the Beaver Water District. We are required by statute to adhere to a statutory process. So with that. So this started when the County Board of Commissioners received notice from the Office of the Secretary of State that the Beaver Water District failed for 3 consecutive years to file reports required by municipal audit law. So, and then as of the end of September, it's actually 4 years delinquent now. The state's notice requested that the board initiate these dissolution proceedings, and we've been adhering to that process since that time. That process begins with the Board of Commissioners office notifying the Beaver Water District of the state's notice and the statutory authority for proceeding with the process. I did that. I contacted the staff at the time and notified her of this notice and the process. I then began working with her on the steps in the statutory process, which begins next with the district providing me with the financial statement to incorporate into the board order that you approved on 10/4, initiating moving forward with the process. So on October 4th, you approved an order that described everything I just said and set the hearing for today to have a public hearing, hear testimony, and discuss what would occur next. Since the order was approved on October 4th, I've had several discussions with the past staff about proceeding towards a resolution. On October 16th, I was notified by one of the board members on October 12th, I was notified by one of the board members who was surprised to find out in the Headlight Herald that this process was occurring, and he notified me that there had been staffing change, and the person, Ms. Reed, is now online with us today, has been working since that time to prepare the financials to get them in order for an auditor to be able to complete an audit. So she's been making a lot of headway in that regard. She also is staff at other districts in the area, and she's known by the Secretary of State, Amy John, the person I've been talking with. So they have since been making a lot of progress in preparing for an audit and also reaching out to auditors. My latest correspondence with the Secretary of State, Amy John, on Monday, I provided the update that I received from Ms. Reed on their progress and asked Ms. John if where the Secretary of State's office is in their support of the board continuing this hearing, which we'll discuss in a second, given the progress that the district is now making. The Secretary of State's office, as I've said, understands where the district is at. They are supportive of Ms. Reed's work and believe she has a good reputation, and believes that they are on track to get an audit eventually completed. And so they are supportive of the board continuing the hearing if you choose to do so at the end of today. So before you today, you'll begin with the public hearing. As I said, we have Ms. Reed here. I also believe we have maybe some members from the district or the district board that can provide some testimony. This public hearing is required under ORS 198-360. The relevant portions of that statute, I will read verbatim. After the hearing, if the county board finds that the district is in fact operating as an active district, or that there is need for the district, the board shall continue the hearing until the reports required under ORS 294-458 and 297-405 to 297-555 are properly filed. Those are the audit reports. When the county board finds that the reports have been filed, it may enter an order terminating all further procedures under ORS 198-345 to 198-365, or if the functions of the district could be performed by a county service district, you can continue the hearing and initiate proceedings, etc. So in consultation with council, it is my recommendation that you proceed with the hearing, and based on your findings, I've prepared a motion for you that allows you to continue this hearing until a time certain date. I would recommend that you include that in your motion so we don't have to do additional noticing. And I would base that decision on when Ms. Reed, her best guess at this time, believes that an audit could be completed. If it is several months away, I would recommend maybe a hearing continuance going into January, that you could open the hearing, receive an update, and then you could always continue it again. Any questions before you open the public hearing?
Thank you. I do not. Thank you for your work on this, and thank you for your clear and thorough report.
Madam Chair, if I may. So this is going to require the water district to do 3 years of audits, is that correct?
So technically, they are 4 years out of compliance.
Okay.
The statute says that dissolution proceedings must occur if they are 3-year delinquent. So I did not ask the Secretary of State this, but this feels a little bit like the tax foreclosure process. Technically, they probably need to do the most delinquent 2 years. But that would be a good question for Heidi on the timing of the audits. Yeah, and what the scope that they're searching for at this point.
And so when you mentioned if indeed we decide to continue this into 2024, I think you said something, if it goes several months. Do we have an idea of what several months might be before you would want to have another public hearing to reschedule the continuation date?
I don't, what's running through my mind is, I don't know if you would want to kick this down the road 6 months. It might just be wise just to have some interim hearings, but again, it'd be interesting to hear what Heidi's thinking, timeline to complete an audit. Because even into January is 3 months away. Seems like it's tomorrow, but it's a little ways out.
You'll be comfortable with that?
Yeah.
That process?
Yeah, this is one of the situations where the state is asking you all to do this bidding for it, and I think the idea is that we should need to keep a little bit of pressure on whether the district can keep off, to come into compliance with the state.
No, I'm good. I think that we're moving ahead as we need to do, and I think providing the necessary time for the Beaver Water District to file their reports, given that they have staff that is actively working on that, is a good plan, and a check-in at 3 months or so. But I am interested in as the hearing is open, hearing from the staff as to what they believe the timeline will be. I think that really helps us set something realistic.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay. So are we ready to open the public hearing? All right, then we will open the public hearing at 10:28 a.m. This is the appropriate time for public comments from Ms. Reed and from our guests in the room. If you'd like to come up, if you have public comments on this subject, you're welcome to come up to this table. Want to hear from Ms. Reed first?
Yeah, I think she's the professional in the room. So.
Okay, all right.
Heidi?
Hello, good morning. So I was called in by the Beaver Water District early in October. And since then I've been trying to get things straightened out as far as their financials and that stuff go. I've been back and forth with Rachel. They're really pretty disheveled, and it's kind of a mess. So we are 3 years out, or the district is 3 years out in their reporting. So in talking to Amy, in our timeline, because I do have other districts that I administer, we're looking at probably December, mid to late December, before I will have an idea of what kind of reporting that they need to do. Whether it be a budget review or a full-on audit. I don't think it's going to be a full-on audit. I think it'll be more along the lines of a budget review, which will be a shorter process. But I will not know that probably until mid to late December. I finally did get a hold of one CPA that's certified to do the Secretary of State budget reviews and audits, who tentatively said they would take on the project if they needed to, depending on what had to happen. They will not be available until January to begin that process. I'm hoping by January I will have a good knowledge of their record system and what's going on with it, and know what kind of reporting they're going to do. So we're really looking at probably mid to late December before I have an idea, and January before anything can be concrete and actually started. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm kind of running into roadblocks here and there, and on top of the old stuff, I have to keep up with the new stuff. So it's been kind of a challenge the last couple weeks trying to get everything straightened out in some kind of a working order. But I'm working on it as best I can.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your work on this. And so you're confident that what needs to be done is doable?
I am very confident it's doable. It's just gonna take a little bit of time, because there's a lot there.
So Heidi, can we ask questions at this point? Heidi, is there any possibility that the Beaver Water District would have to fold and not provide water services to the residents of Beaver?
I do not foresee that happening. As long as we can stay on the path that we're on, we should be good.
Good.
One other question. So if you were in our shoes and wanted if indeed we were to decide to continue this, do you have an anticipated date of when we should maybe schedule the next public hearing to get an update from you? Would you think late January or first part of February, or what would you be thinking?
I would, at this point, I would say probably mid to late January, I should have something that will give, a pretty good idea of what's going on and what needs to be done. That would be my assumption. If I didn't have 3 other districts underneath me, it would probably be sooner, but I have those other 3 districts, so I'm juggling everything over here.
I understand.
The good news, though, is that makes you an expert.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Well, you are the expert in the room, absolutely.
Commissioner Scar?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Gentlemen, do you have any public comments to make on this subject?
I mean, just as a volunteer member of the board, we were.
Could you come up to the table and introduce yourself, please? Thank you.
My name's Jason McKillop out of Beaver, volunteer member of the board there. We didn't, as the board of directors didn't know anything about this until the newspaper article came out. So that's where we're at with things pretty much. We have faith in Heidi to take care of this. Just give us a little bit of time, I think we can get this in here.
Great. Well, you weren't at our meeting where we discussed this the first time, and all of us said, we don't want to dissolve the Beaver Water District. But the dissolution language is required by the Secretary of State. So, just so you know, in case you didn't, that it was never our desire to dissolve the Beaver Water District.
Sure. That's the gist we got. We finally, the Beaver Water District has, made great strides in the last number of years. We've got some great employees finally. We know how hard it is to find employees in the area. So things are moving forward there. This was kind of a blow that we weren't expecting, but onward and upward, and I think we're going to get this knocked out for
Great, great. Well, it sounds like it. All right.
Thank you.
Sir, would you like to?
I'm just a member of the, I live in Beaver. I'm just curious to what's going on about our water.
Sure.
I am the end of Beaver Water.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, thank you both for being here. And thank you, Heidi, for your work on this and for joining us today.
I did just want to add for the record regarding the late notice that they received. I did specifically ask the last staff person if the board was aware of this, and she told me that they were. So, about that, I want to put that on the record.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, is there any more public comment? Anybody? In that case, we will close the public hearing, recess the public hearing. Thank you for the reminder. We will recess the public hearing at 10:34 a.m. And commissioners, do we have further deliberation, or are we ready for?
I don't think so. I think we were gonna add a date to the motion, so with January 17th, that would be mid-January, would that be a good date so we can give that date certain so we don't have to notice?
Does that work for you, Heidi?
yeah, that would work for me.
Okay.
At an update, we recognize, Heidi, that at that time, we probably won't have it resolved, but at least you'll be able to let us know where things are, so.
Right.
So are we good with that, Bill? So January 17, 2024, correct?
At 10 a.m.
At 10, time certain, okay. Okay, so are we ready for a motion?
I think we are.
Okay, so, Madam Chair, in the matter of consideration of continuation or termination of the Beaver Water District, I move the board finds that the district is in fact operating as an active district, that there is a need for the district, and that this public hearing should be continued until January 17, 2024 at a time certain 10 a.m., until which time the reports required under ORS 294.45A and 297.405, 297.555 are properly filed. Good with that, Bill? Okay.
Okay, I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. All right.
Okay.
Thank you all for your work on this.
Yes. Any questions, please let us know. Okay, perfect. Heidi? Thank you so much for being here, Heidi. You are the professional in the room, remember that.
Okay, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. So this public hearing is continued, correct?
It's recessed.
Recessed and continued. Perfect.
All right. Do we have an executive session? Okay. So at this time, we will. I'll make board announcements, which I don't have. Do we have any announcements? I don't have them on my sheet. Okay, so I'll refer folks to board announcements on our website. And for upcoming board meetings, etc., please visit our website. And this board is going to move into executive session at 10:37 a.m.
Under ORS 192.66.2.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
The board meeting is recessed.
The board meeting is recessed to go into executive session. Do we anticipate making any decisions when we come out? We do not anticipate making any decisions when we come out of executive session. So we'll recess now at 10:38 and say thank you to everyone.
Okay.
Those videos were good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one more video, but there's a fourth one that there's a two.
Debbie, I don't see the draft executive
I'm
session
wondering
minutes.
if we should try to do both.
I'm sorry, what?
I don't see a draft executive session.
Okay.
Jenny said it was okay for her.
Excuse me.
Hi. Trying to join here.
Is this Union?
Hello. How are you, John?
So Rachel will, we just got an email from Danny Marston.
Yes.
So I'll make sure you look at that email.
I saw it, it's whatever they want to do,
Okay.
whoever they said they want to participate.
Younger requested is Jenny, obviously.
Okay.
She's the primary person.
Execute over.
Is